start over here on my left. This is Brad Herrick. Brad is a physician, and Brad is also a member of the Air National Guard, is that?
Force Reserve.
Air Force Reserve. He flies the tanker jets that fuel the fighter jets, and on one occasion fueled Air Force One, or one or more occasions. Anyway, so what was your reaction to the debate? What was the most important thing that you learned?
I thought Trump was less confrontational than I thought he was going to be. I thought he went out of his way to agree with Hillary when he could, and then he'd show how he disagreed. I thought she kind of went a little more negative than I had kind of expected, especially in her little pot shot at the end. You know, she kind of talked about the whole thing where, you know, Michelle Obama went high and, you know, Trump went low. Well, I thought at the end she went low and Trump tried to go high. So I was a little bit surprised about that. That's not what I expected.
So were you disappointed in her performance?
Well, she didn't look like she was having a seizure, or you know, she looked refreshed. She didn't look like she was sick. I mean, that's kind of what you've been hearing for the last week, is that she's sick and there's something really wrong with her, and so
certainly not physically, anyway.
Certainly not physically. So, so I didn't pick that up. She looked good. You know, she looks better than she normally does.
So you think her makeup person should get an Academy Award?
Yeah.
Okay, Christian. Now, Christian is a student, right?
Yes, sir. I'm also a singer.
A singer.
Yes.
And where are you in college now? You graduated?
I recently got my my high school diploma at the college. I got it late.
Okay.
Because I dropped out of high school, but then I went back to high school because I had 2 kids. So.
Well, congratulations.
Yes.
That's very,
Yes.
education is really the way. And this is Barry Glenrange. He's Kathy's husband. And Barry works with a company whenever you need an artificial knee or you need an artificial joint. He's in the operating room helping the doctors to put it in. He sells those. So, what was the most significant thing or important thing you learned from the debate?
Well, surprisingly, or maybe it shouldn't be a surprise to me, in watching Hillary's body language, she looked down a lot like she had notes in advance to the questions. So I thought maybe Lester Holt and...
You think she got the questions in
I
advance?
think she had the questions in advance because
Don't they always
What do you
that?
think about that?
Hillary's dishonest, so I
No,
would
no,
say
do you think she had the questions in advance?
maybe.
You think Donald had them in advance?
No, because he was not near as polished on his responses, and he, you know, has a tendency to be all over the map in how he responds.
Yeah, he does wander.
Yeah, he wanders. So, but I thought her body language was just kind of echoing the fact that she knew the question. So she was very well prepared in her response, albeit I didn't agree with a lot of her responses, but she was more prepared than Donald.
So you were surprised that you think she cheated.
No, I wasn't surprised she cheated.
Well, you were surprised.
That doesn't surprise
You were
me.
surprised it was so obvious she got caught.
Right, because she was literally looking down. She'd look at the camera and then look down for a few seconds, you know, to tick off the notes. I'm like, wow, that's right there. She hasn't fully committed to memory. She had to have some notes to make sure she got every point, and she's a bit of a control freak. So I think that's why she had to have notes to make sure she got every last point
Off her list.
Originally, she wanted the thing in her ear.
Right.
Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I'll comment, before I get to you, George, I'll comment on this a little bit, and Don will probably want to too. We're both lawyers, and so one of the things we learn to do is to talk extemporaneously. But that's something that's really, really difficult to do, that Donald is amazing at. But Hillary doesn't seem to know how to do that.
No.
What do you think?
I think if she got off script or off her notes, she would be lost. And in the beginning, because she got emotionally jolted a little bit, she was off. She couldn't even find her place in the notes or something. She was looking around. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe he didn't start exactly like she thought with the first question like he told her, or implied to her, or dropped the notes on the table, and he went out to take a cigarette break.
And this is George Acosta, who works for his son, George Acosta Jr. George Jr. owns Reliant Towing, and George works with the business and drives a big tow truck, one of these 18-wheelers that tows some of this construction equipment around. And, what most surprised you on the debate?
Well, frankly, I was surprised by the attitude Donald Trump took at this debate. I thought he'd be more aggressive. I think he'd be more insulting than he was. I think he took this time the high road, which I'm totally shocked.
Why are you so shocked? You think he's just like The Apprentice, or?
Yeah, basically because of his ego that he carries, that he lives with, his stature in society, and basically who he says he is, because he's a very self-conceited man. Speaks very highly of himself. And don't get it wrong, I am a Republican, been a Republican my whole life, and I've been struggling with him this whole campaign. And no better of the two, Hillary, I don't trust. But, you know, I'm going based on experience in the White House, and as Donald said, you've been in the office for 30 years. What have you done to change it? Now all of a sudden you want to change it. A lot of truth in that. I think Hillary is just playing the banjo, the political banjo, playing the song that she thinks her constituents want to hear. I think she's doing what the White House has done for the last 30 years, and what the Democrats have been in office for the last 8 anyways. You know, I used to be self-employed. I used to employ employees at a small business, but very difficult because of the tax laws. And I don't see it getting any better. It's all talk. But, you know, I'm still between the ropes. I don't know which way I'm going to vote. I have my concerns about both candidates. If I had to vote today, I don't think I'd vote at all. But unfortunately, you know, I would probably lean towards my Republican Party.
Did Trump do anything today that made you more comfortable with him?
Yeah, I think he's swinging towards being more of a professional. I think he's swinging towards representing our party better. I know he's a roughneck, you know, and the Donald. I mean, that's who he is. He is very, very set in his ways. The man's almost 70 years old, and I don't think he's going to change.
Wait a minute.
I mean, set in his ways. He's an old dog, and I don't think he's willing to learn new tricks, is what I'm saying. But I think for the better of the two, as you said, the little speech you said about both our ex-presidents, I agree with you. I think he hasn't been politicized, basically brought into the arena being a politician. I think he's always been a businessman, and I think everything that comes in front of him is business first. And regardless of what the decision needs to be, I think he'll make the best decision for the business. And being the United States being the business, I think he can make the best decision for us.
Okay, well, I went last, so...
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, sure.
You know, I was really impressed that he took charge. Trump took charge of that debate. He never, you know, quit, or when he had something to say, he finished it. You know, he was very presidential that way. So I just thought that was pretty cool.
I was surprised that he interrupted as much as he did. I look at this. Hillary's been being a politician for 30 years. Trump's been doing it for about 300 days. And he's got a big learning curve because government is different than business. In many ways it's a little bit too different, but it really is different. There is a different purpose in it. I thought that he would be more subdued to try and deal with the charges that they say that he is has a bad temperament and is off the wall. And I was surprised in listening to these comments that apparently I'm the only one who saw that. The rest of y'all were very, thought he was very moderated. But I look at this, it's amazing where he's gone. He's fighting the entire establishment from the beginning, and he has managed to get here. And one of the big things I keep looking at with Trump, and I think I may have said this on another show earlier, why is he doing this? Now I have to confess, I am certainly not in the league of Donald Trump. I am certainly not a billionaire. But I am a lawyer who managed to get his own television station, so I'm certainly not on the welfare rolls. Although this television station may put me there. One of the reasons I got this station was to share views, because I don't think our news media tries to program people instead of encourage them to think and cause them to think. And I try and make people think. I don't try and make people reach decisions. I look at, if I had Trump's money and Trump's life, would I be willing to run for president and become a piñata for everybody who wanted to? I honestly don't think I would do it. You talk about who has a great life. What's he going to get by being president? Well, okay, he gets to live in the White House. Oh, wait a minute. He lives in the palace at Versailles that he's recreated on Fifth Avenue, right down from Broadway. Frankly, I have never been inside of it, but I have been inside the White House. I think it looks a lot better. It's got a much better location. But if for some reason he wants to live in Washington, he's got a hotel there with a pretty magnificent suite. So he's not getting a better house. Well, he gets Air Force One. Huh? Wait a minute. He's got his own plane. It's not a 747. I think it's a, what is it, Brad?
757.
It's a 757. But he has gold-plated seat belts. He's not going to have those on Air Force One. Well, let's see. He gets to go to Camp David. Oh, wait a minute. He's got the old post estate that he called Mar-a-Lago. And he can go there anytime he wants to. And who the hell would want to go to Camp David when you can go to sunny Florida? So, well, he gets a nice salary. Oh, wait a minute. He gets $400,000 a year. He probably spends that in tip money. He gets a pension. Okay, what's he going to do with that? In other words, this is the only one in my lifetime, with the possible exception of John F. Kennedy, who's not getting anything by running for president. You know, John F. Kennedy, the whole Kennedy family, Papa Joe told them, don't try and go into business and make more money than me. You can't do it. I already made the money. You guys have privileged lives. You need to show your gratitude by doing public service. And Don, who's half Jewish and half Catholic, understands about Catholic guilt, because Papa Joe sure gave it to those kids. And all those Kennedys went, at least of the first generation, went into public service, and that's why John Kennedy was there, for public service, not for money. And I don't think, as I'm thinking through the list of who we've had since then, I don't think we've had one who's gone for that reason, except possibly Donald Trump. So I believe that he cares about his family. And by the way, that's something nobody's mentioned yet, but it's something that's really important to me. I think it's a lot harder to raise your kids if you're rich than if you're poor, because if you're rich, what do they have to go work for? They have everything. And there's a real tendency amongst rich people to give the kids money and leave them alone. And he hasn't got one, he's got 4 really tremendous kids. and five, and from three different families, three different women, and they all get together, they travel together. How many adult children are willing to travel with their parents, even if they do have their own plane? That says something about what kind of man he is, and what kind of a family person he is. And I just believe that whether his goals are right or wrong, whether his methods are right or wrong, I look at why is he doing this, and he gave one incorrect answer. They asked him, have you ever done anything to sacrifice for the country? And he talked about his buildings and so on like that. That wasn't the sacrifice. The sacrifice he's making for the country is he's trying to serve as our president. And for him, that's a sacrifice. Not for Hurricane Hillary, but for him, in my opinion, it is a sacrifice. Now, that doesn't mean that he's going to do a good job. That doesn't mean that he's not going to get us into a lot of trouble, but at least his motive is pure. His motive is to do good. Bradley, when you walked in here, who were you inclined to... are you allowed to give that opinion while you're in the military?
I'm not in uniform.
So you can give it.
I haven't been following this all that much, in all honesty. This has been the least I've been following this since I've been a kid. This has been the least election I've been following. So
Why is that?
I don't know. I just haven't.
Okay.
I have not been all that interested in it, and I have not been following it. And so it's like I don't have a strong opinion,
Either way.
Either way, I really don't.
So do you know who you're voting for yet?
No, I don't.
Did this debate help you decide?
I'm less fearful of Trump and more fearful of Hillary. So.
But you're not less fearful enough to vote for him, and you're not more fearful enough to vote against her.
Maybe. I thought she did. I mean, my history is like I thought when she was Secretary of State, I was surprised. I thought she did a pretty good job, and until the whole Benghazi thing happened, and then that kind of changed my mind because I thought that was a real disaster that she didn't take. Yeah. She didn't own up to. The buck didn't stop with her, and she's kind of pushed, and that's really turned me off. Yeah. And ever since then, I've been. I mean, that's. Before
then, she had really good press, huh?
I thought she'd been. I was surprised at how good I thought she was a secretary because I didn't think she was going to be good, but I was impressed. And when that happened, it was like there's something wrong here.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, no Americans died in Libya, remember?
Yeah.
According to her, except for her ambassador and 3 other people.
On the drones footage, the whole thing.
Well, my biggest problem with that, and I gave an editorial here a few weeks ago when I think we called it "The Dog Ate My Homework," and that was when we got the FBI report. And I said the one thing the FBI report tells us is that we can't believe anything Hurricane Hillary says. And I think that was shown to be very true tonight. And Benghazi was very true. My biggest problem with Benghazi is that she went along with that program to pin it on the video. When, for those of you who don't know, the first thing the Obama administration said was that, well, these were some people who were upset about a video on Mohammed, when it really was, it was a spontaneous demonstration, when it really was a very well-planned terroristic attack that they were sleeping at the switch at. So, and they knew it was a terrorist attack, but because it was close to the election, they made a determination to lie to us. Yep. And I have a real problem with that. And one of the things a president needs is personal courage. Now, an example of that is during the Carter administration. Jimmy Carter sent these helicopters to Iraq to try and rescue our hostages. And Cyrus Vance was against that raid, and it unfortunately was successful. But Cyrus Vance resigned as our Secretary of State because he couldn't condone the raid. And Hillary, instead of standing up and saying, I'm not going to be part of this lie, she told her daughter, in essence, that it was a lie. She told her friends it was a lie, but in public, she told the administration lie. And that is a quality that is fatal in a president. When a president talks to us and says that we need to do something, we have to be able to believe them. And Hillary's record tells us we can't believe her. Unfortunately, Donald's is not that much better. But the difference with Donald is he lying or embellishing? She was clearly lying. So, my friend Christian, as you watched this, did you see anything? I think you told me you were pro-Trump when you came in here.
No, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I'm a Hispanic.
No, lie to me, lie to me. That's what they've been doing before us. Lie.
Before today, I was never for Trump, to be honest with you, because in the past he said a lot of racial things, or just not necessarily like, I'm not calling him a racist, but he has said like foolish things, and that just made me just not be.
Shall we say he was insensitive to minorities?
Yes, in the past.
Yeah.
Like, but that doesn't mean that I was for Hillary when I came here either.
Okay.
I just never liked her. I never thought that.
Now,
the Clintons-
did your debate change your mind?
The debate made me think. I'm leaning a little bit towards Trump now, because, like I said, that Hillary was just too focused on trying to make Trump look bad. That was her main focal point. And even when
you know why? Wait a minute. Why do you think she spends her time trying to make Trump look bad?
like you said, maybe because she doesn't have a good.
She doesn't have anything to
Good
say
plan.
herself. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry I interrupted you, but go ahead, please.
And like even when Hillary said bad things about Trump, you know, Trump took those comments, she corrected them because most of them were lies.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yeah, well, we saw
So-
clear lies.
Exactly,
Yeah.
clear lies coming from Hillary Clinton. So I like how Trump took them, he corrected them, and not only that, but he gave his point of view on the subject. So I thought that was pretty good. On the other hand, Hillary Clinton didn't have much of a. She was just being like, she was just playing politics, and she's really good at that. She sounded like another political person. That's how she sounded.
Basically begging you for your vote, and
Exactly.
then for the
Sound-
next 4
saying-
years she...
saying good words, you know,
Yeah.
talking the talk. On the other hand,
She talks the talk, but she doesn't walk the walk.
exactly. On the other hand, Trump, he doesn't have much of a talk. He's just like straight up for it. He's not the smoothest, you know. But
Try not to hit the
but-
table. It's hell on the mic.
I don't have experience. But as a person, Trump sounded more, you know, honest.
Here's a good question.
You know.
Who would you like to go have a beer with? Donald or Hillary?
I'll have a beer with Trump, yes. And then
How about Hillary?
I don't think she drinks, does she?
Oh, she drinks!
Trump doesn't drink.
No.
Yeah, that's.
So like
No,
I
he
said at
doesn't.
the beginning, you know, in the past, I wasn't for Trump because I think he's lost control. Like when he speaks, he says foolish things a lot, and this is and everybody knows that. And you know, my favorite was Rubio, but he's not around anymore because I think he was much more fit than both of these guys.
Okay.
But if I have to choose, I'll go for Trump because.
I want to mine something with you. I know Trump is very politically incorrect
Yes.
as he talks about minority issues.
Mhm.
But to me, his heart's in the right place. I get genuine when he talks about the minority communities and how there is no advantage there and no education. I see sincerity. I think he's telling the truth. I think he's telling the truth that this is how he feels. And he feels a need as somebody who is privileged to try and do something about it. But then I see all these minority talking heads on the show and they tell me how insulted they are by what he says. How do you take it? Of course, see, they're being paid by their networks to be insulted.
About what he says about?
Yeah, about whether you think he's sincere as he talks about really wanting to help the minority community. Do you
I don't really know. I don't really know, to be honest, if he's sincere. I'm not gonna say yes, he is.
You don't know.
I think that I'm surprised they didn't talk about the immigration issue. Next to it, huh? Okay. I really don't know how he feels.
They didn't talk about immigration because his comments about Hillary's appearance were far more important than anything on immigration.
Yeah, that question was off. I don't really know. I don't really know if he's sincere about it. I think he's never been in. He's never had it hard. He's always had a good life. He's never.
Oh no, that's not true. He's had it hard. In the
he had a
no. In the 80s or the 90s, he was virtually bankrupt. He really was, and he managed to pull it out. The banks could have flushed him, but they decided to leave him alone. He was getting in a messy divorce from Ivana Trump, who I rather unaffectionately refer to as I wanna Trump, and he has had challenges, and he has had his comeuppance, and he has managed to prosper over some very difficult times. I mean, he's not like a lot of people. You know, I always say, well, my idea of being broke is that I gotta eat at Denny's instead of at Melvin's, you know. But anyhow, Miss Dawn.
Yes.
Did you learn anything that changed your mind? You came in here liking Trump, and you do know him.
Well, yeah, I know him. Not that I know him well.
Yeah.
But he's a friend of a person I know quite well. So that's, in fact, before I even met him, I thought he was a buffoon. So I wasn't really looking forward to meeting him. I have a friend of mine named Alice Candell, and her father, Leonard Candell, was one of his mentors in real estate.
One of Donald's.
One of Donald's mentors. And they were dedicating part of Central Park to her father. And so, of course, she had like 30 people. We had a thing at Tavern on the Green, and then there was a dedication ceremony at Central Park. And so I attended, and Donald attended. And so I said, well, because my friend Alice said, oh yeah, he's a really nice guy. You're going to be surprised. And I said, well, I don't know. But so
typical feminine reservation.
I did have some reservation. But then actually when I met him, he was more like this, the side of him that he's presenting now. So at that particular time, it was quite shocking to me, because I was thinking he was going to be like on, you're fired, the attitude. And he was very measured, just like he was here. And he was well versed on the issues at hand. And he had clear ideas in terms of how he wanted to resolve the issues. I mean, even then he was involved in the political realm to some extent. And he was already getting more and more this feeling that things were going down the toilet and on and on and on. And after I met him and was part of that, I turned my opinion around. I flipped the switch. I thought, wow, what a shock. I had no idea that, maybe some people...
He had a lot of depth to him?
He had a lot of depth. A lot of depth. Because you and I were used to interrogating people and things like that. And so... I'm sorry. But you know, you find a lot of superficiality out there, a lot of insincerity. But when the more deeply you would dig, the more sincere, the more conviction you would see, the more sincerity. And I was frankly quite impressed. In fact, I came back here and I told everybody, you're not going to believe this, but I thought this guy was a total idiot, and he's not. He's intelligent, he's well-versed, he's got some depth, and frankly, I was completely taken off guard, taken by surprise.
There's one point I do want to address, and that is the issue of the legality of stop and frisk, because I learned something today from Mr. Trump about that. I've heard everybody just on the mainstream media, the lamestream media, as Sarah Palin might say, saying, well, stop and frisk is unconstitutional. And as the Trumpster pointed out, it's not. There is one federal judge who looked at the number of minorities who were affected by stop and frisk, and he said in his opinion it was unconstitutional. When de Blasio came in, the case was going to be appealed. De Blasio refused to appeal it and dropped the case, so the trial court opinion stands. But a trial court opinion that something is unconstitutional is not the equivalent of it being unconstitutional. It's just one judge's opinion. And you've seen this, for example, with Obamacare. There are any number of federal courts all over the country who've said it's constitutional, others have said it's not constitutional. It goes up. Until it gets to the Supreme Court, we don't know whether it's constitutional or not. But, I have always had a real problem with this allergy that Hurricane Hillary and the people on the left have to profiling. The most graphic example, and this is a true story. Back through the airport screening, there was a woman in a burqa. I call them beekeeper suits, but in a burqa going through. And Ted Kennedy was going through. And so who do they go stop and search? Well, of course, Ted Kennedy, because we can't appear to be profiling. And that's just nonsense. It's utter stupidity. If you're going to go look for gold, mine for gold, you got to mine where the gold is. But I just have a real problem with everything is unconstitutional if it will do something about crime. Well, I'm sorry. It's unconstitutional to have to live with all these murders going on around you. One of the things in our preamble to the Constitution, it says to promote domestic tranquility. And Chicago needs a lot of domestic tranquility. Michael, did you learn anything that made up your mind?
Well, I've been going back and forth since the beginning of it, since the primaries. And like a lot of people, I was waiting for that moment, the decisive moment that said, okay, now you know which way to go. I hate to be lied to. I've been in situations before, as you know, that have required me to stand up and speak my mind and stop the buck where it belongs. And this woman will never do that. She will not go the distance. She'll pass the buck constantly. And you can hear it in her answers. She wants to just keep everybody under control in a fearful state because this world is so scary. She's going to protect us. And I'm just not buying it anymore.
So did you make up your mind based on this debate?
I have.
So it sounds like you're going to vote for Trump.
I'm going to vote for Donald.
But it wasn't so much what he said, it was what she said.
Well, no, his demeanor has been a concern of mine, and we've talked about this before. He has made racist comments. He has said things about certain minority groups. There was at one point so much of this going on, it was sort of reminiscent of the 1940s, and that made me nervous because we've been persecuted in the past.
And Michael and I are both Jewish. Yeah, any allusions to the 40s have cause us big nightmares. But go ahead.
Big nightmares. But as I watched this man, and I did see compassion in his eyes. I've worked in the inner cities. I know what he's talking about when he says these poor people can't get a break.
Let me
Because they're
clarify
in a
that.
circle.
Let me clarify that. There is a very big hospital in New Orleans called Charity Hospital. And that is in the center of one of the worst ghettos in the world, not just in America, one of the worst ghettos in the world. And Michael did his residency. It was your internship. At Charity Hospital. So when he talks about working in an inner city, he ain't just whistling Dixie. He was in.
We had a couple of gunfights in the hospital, and the gunshot wounds were how you learn how to be a doctor. Patch them up and send them somewhere where there's a real hospital.
So anyhow, but you saw compassion for that.
I did. It's almost something you said earlier about his parenting skill. There's a chord in him that cares about people. And I don't think that chord exists in Hillary.
Okay, very insightful. Miss Amy, was there anything that you heard that made up your mind?
Yeah, it really reinforced me my personal preference. If you have a snake or a bear, I prefer the bear because at least I know it's coming for me.
You're stealing all my metaphors!
So although Donald may be a little bit harsh and he's not warm and fuzzy, I've been called a broad by the best of them.
Why are you looking at me?
and I'd rather be, I'd rather you tell me to my face that you don't like me than lie to me and turn around and do something. So I think that although he's not polished and he's very offensive and he's not nice and cuddly and, I am a woman and I work hard, I'm not offended. And yeah, if the women should work just as hard as a man and vice versa to get the equal pay, that's just entitlement. That's just silly. So that just confirms to me that Hillary is scary and she's not the person I want to vote for, woman or not.
I wouldn't vote for her as a woman, no.
Would you vote for her for any other reason?
No.
So,
She's out for power. I think that's all she
so
wants.
did you see anything in this debate that made up your mind?
Yeah, I did. I will vote for Trump.
And what did you see in the debate that made you decide that?
I think it was Hillary's demeanor. It's like she thinks she's better than everybody else. And she thinks she knows more than everybody else. And she tries to, talk down to people, I think. So, and knowing that she's after the power and that's all she wants and line her own pockets, I just, it turns me off. Turns me the wrong way.
How about you, Kathy? Did you see anything that made up your mind?
Well, I'd already made up my mind. I was planning to vote for Trump.
Did you see anything that either reinforced it or caused you to reconsider that?
Yeah, it reinforced it that he came across as very smart. He's a very sharp businessman. He has a lot of specifics. Whereas Hillary was more talking in generalities. And he cares about the national debt. He was talking about Obama, that being nearly doubled under Obama.
Well, of course, under his programs, it's going to balloon too.
Well, I actually think, I think under his programs, we've got a better shot at the debt not increasing just because I think he's for, well, he said he's for less government spending.
His theory is that if he lowers taxes and does some of these programs, that the economy will grow and a lower tax rate will produce higher taxes because there'll be more income. Do you agree? Huh?
That'll go up for a while.
Yeah. Do you agree with that? That lower taxes will produce higher income?
Yes, I agree with that. And I think Hillary's going to spend a lot more money, and she's going to collect a lot more of our money in taxes. And she just came out saying she's in favor of a 65% like estate tax rate. On the
For
highest
over $1 billion.
incomes. Yeah, but I just, the government already takes about 50% of your money. If you're
On
tax
inheritance
payer.
tax, I think it's at 45% now.
60
Huh?
Going to 60 something with this.
Yeah, but this is something really important, Liz. We all have credit cards. When I take my credit card and I use it to buy a machine, let's say I use it to buy a copy machine, so I can make copies to file lawsuits against people, that's a capital investment. I'm going to make money off of it. When I use that credit card to go buy dinner, I'm just financing consumption. And one of the problems with Hillary's use of tax form money is it just finances consumption. It doesn't create capital investment. And what Trump wants to do is take our money and put it into capital investment. Now, I don't know that his figures really make that much sense, but and I don't know that they're going to work. I have a lot of doubts. But I already know what's going to happen with Hurricane Hillary's figures. She's going to create a welfare state by raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, which no employer can afford to pay, so everything's going to get mechanized. I just read an article in the LA Times the other day. They're looking at getting, we've heard about these driverless cars. They're going to have driverless trucks, driverless 18-wheelers. And that's one of the principal ways for blue-collar people to make a living. And she's just going to, it's basically the unknown versus the known. And anyhow, I gotta turn this way. If it doesn't go that way, I'm not a bird, unfortunately. Barry!
Yes?
Did you learn anything that changed your mind?
I'm still on the fence, actually. I'm one of the few people here, I think it's somewhat on the fence. I'm not going to vote for Hillary.
That you figured out?
That part I figured out.
Well, were you there before you came here today?
Yes.
And did you hear anything today that made you more resolute in that viewpoint?
Yes.
What was that?
Just again, the script, the negativity, her inability to tell the truth at any given point, and even when Donald would correct her, she wouldn't acquiesce to it. But what I do find on the other side of Donald, and I guess I'm gonna have to meet him to really figure this out. He's just so difficult to swallow, being so arrogant. I find him very arrogant, and that's hard to.
That's part of his sales routine, really.
Maybe, but I'm not buying it.
I
want somebody that's humble. I want a Reagan.
If you turned $1 million into somewhere between $2 and $10 billion, depending on who you talk to, don't you think maybe you have a right to be a little arrogant?
Maybe, but I don't think you have. I mean, be arrogant about business. Don't demean the Hispanic population. Don't demean women. I mean, the things he said about women and Hispanics.
Well, he limited to Rosie O'Donnell.
Yes, I agree, but I think a gentleman would never do that.
Okay.
I mean, at least publicly. Running for office, please. And this guy's on a national stage. You're running for office. I mean, even though Rosie O'Donnell can be a very difficult person to, I'm sure, tolerate. He said that he never should have done that. Reagan would have never done that.
True. Did you want to
We're going
say
to start
something?
a marital spout. As a woman who pays attention to politics, I like Trump much better than Hillary. I think, even though he
Barry, I think you agree with that.
Oh yeah, I mean that's not a hard. That's a low litmus test.
On the women's issue though. Because yes, he's said some things that he shouldn't have said, but when he's fighting with Rosie O'Donnell and she's saying very vicious things, and they're in a personal war, that doesn't mean that his comments apply to women in general. He's not saying them about me. He's not saying them about my daughters. You know, so it's very insulting to women, I think, to take his comments that were directed at a female who's attacking him and then try to convince all of us he's attacking
I'm gonna
women.
stop you a minute, which I ordinarily don't do, but I have to here. One of the big issues is, to me, is do you believe what I say or do you believe what I do? Now, he has some outrageous things that he says, but he was the first big contractor in New York to actually hire a woman to supervise a big general construction project. So actions speak louder than words, and his actions are that he gives women jobs before anybody else would. And a lot of these people know, my viewers don't know, but my mother, who's not with us anymore, was hired as the first female auditor by Los Angeles County. She got her degree in accounting. She had a 4.0 average. She would apply for jobs, and because she wanted to work, she didn't need to, she wanted to, and they'd say, gee, you got a husband, go home and make babies. Somewhere around in her papers, I have a letter from Alan Cranston, who used to be our senator, saying, we don't hire women as accountants. If you really need a job, maybe we'll consider you for a receptionist. She finally, my dad pulled some strings, she finally got hired at LA County as an auditor. When it came time for her promotion, they didn't believe that a woman could supervise a man. So they called her a lead auditor, and they sent her out on audit as a lead auditor to see what it was like with a woman supervising a man. Now this is in the 60s, something unheard of today. But I personally know how difficult it is and was for women to be accepted as equals even when they could do the job. And that's one of the things, actions speak a lot louder than words, and Donald gave women jobs when nobody else would. And I find that really significant. And I'm sorry, I interrupted you, so if you want to continue.
No, that's
Okay, George, did you learn anything that made up your mind?
Well, there's a few things that kind of hit home for me from Donald was basically, you know, there's a lot more problems than just our budgets and world crisis, and issues like that, racism. To be president, you're dealing with a lot more than that. A lot of us, and depending on the culture that we come from, will take things a little different. Being persecuted for being whatever nationality you are, being stereotyped for...
Let me explain something. George is Hispanic. He may not look it, but he's and he's bilingual too.
Yeah. And I speak for a lot of my nationality, Hispanics, and I've asked a lot of questions about who they're going to vote for and why. And the biggest issue that Hispanics, both being men and women, have been the racist comments about building the wall, deporting. And in turn, I debate with them as well, saying, well, you know, Hispanics aren't the only illegals in the United States. They come from every country in the world. And being the proud heritage that we are as Hispanics, we take it to heart. We forget about the other issues. For myself, I believe I'm a little bit more educated when it comes to knowing world politics, and being president isn't just, you know, writing law, changing laws, and making life better for us. It's dealing with the other countries, with terrorism, with finances. I mean, our world is based around finances. Whatever our government does is going to affect the little business. And I've lived that. You know, Donald has been through several bankruptcies. I mean, I know hundreds of businessmen that suffered the same. And business is tough, and if running a little business is tough, I'm sure being president is really tough. And I believe that being truthful, transparency is for me, most important as president. And new blood, I think, is as scary as it is because of the uncertainties of not knowing if this guy's a time bomb or is he really going to, is somebody going to put the harness on this guy and show him the way? Or are we going to go into a third world war? You know, are we lose troops? I mean, there's a lot of unanswered questions. But to make it short, where I started was a lot of us are voting based on the way we're being treated, the way we're being stereotyped. And for me, I'm not looking at that perspective. But for a lot of people that struggle every day, that live week to week, that's all they have. And their pride is more important than a dollar a month. So I learned that I think the Donald is finally coming around and learning that. And I was surprised that they didn't talk about building the wall. Surprised they didn't talk about immigration. And I am just as disappointed as everybody else here. They asked about her parents and not the things that really matter to us.
Mm-hmm.
So
So the question is, did you learn anything?
Yes.
What did you learn, and how did it make up your mind?
I learned that the integrity of a person is worth more than a dollar. The truth of who is out there running our country is more important than a dollar. And as you mentioned, Donald don't have absolutely nothing to gain being president. A lot of people think that he's going to change the tax laws and benefit line his own wallet. I don't think the man needs to do that. You know, and I think he knows enough people in the White House that he can get it done without being president.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that he's really in it to make a change if it works. And as you say, he is a family. And for us divorced that have different families and we're meshing two families together, I know how difficult it is. Let alone to bring kids from another family into yours. Other families, it's hard. And he's, for whatever reason, he's been able to manage and be able to accomplish and maintain a family unit, which is important. So that's what I learned from the college.
So did you make up your mind?
I would say I'm about 95% sure it will.
And who is that?
I believe it's good.
Okay. Okay. So who's going to translate, George or Christian? I can do it. Okay. My question is, did you learn anything in the debate today that made up your mind?
Dice que la pregunta de él es si se aprendió algo usted hoy en el debate que le ayudó a cambiar su forma de pensar.
Sí.
Yes.
Aprendí sobre todo a escuchar qué piensa cada persona, no solo se apunta a todos se piensa y cada persona tiene su manera de interpretar las cosas del debate. Aprendí que los dos candidatos quieren lo mejor para el país, es lo más importante. Y era muy importante decir que Trump nos regala a los mexicanos. Nos dio un regalo porque creo que es la primera vez que tantos hispanos y mexicanos y salvadoreños quieren votar y quieren ser parte de la política y se están interesando en la política. Eso es algo muy importante para nosotros.
¿Quieren votar por él?
No, quieren hacerse votar, lo que ellos piensan. Yo creo que es la primera vez que va a haber tanto voto hispano, porque tocó el corazón de las personas, porque les sacó la fuerza, porque somos fuertes desde que estamos en un país que no es el nuestro y donde no hablamos el idioma, pero estamos luchando y somos personas de lucha.
Okay, she said that she even learned just by being here, just by listening to even all of our opinions, that it's very important to listen to all the different opinions. And she says that she also liked to listen to both of the candidates, how they both care for the country, for the better of the country. And she also said that she's very amazed about, you know, when Trump was saying all these comments, he kind of awakened the Hispanic people to go out there and wanted to vote, because they kind of felt like Hispanics never wanted to go out there and vote because they didn't want to be part of it. But since he said all these comments, she said that now she feels that Hispanics want to rise up and want to go out there and want to actually vote, and she says that that's very important. You know, he's helped for the Hispanic community to like awaken them to go out there and vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you, you came in here leaning towards Hillary Clinton. Have you changed at all in that? She heard me. Did you find anything that you liked about Donald Trump?
Yeah.
What was that? Tell him in Spanish.
Mira, en esta ocasión puse mucha atención de lo que estaba diciendo, estaba hablando cosas muy importantes. Pero no voto por él.
She says that she did pay attention to him and he said a lot of good things that were important, but she still wouldn't vote for him.
Okay. Okay. Well, we're not here trying to recruit votes for anyone. I'm going to do one more. We're losing our thing. Let's get this thing straight so we don't have a bunch of green. And folks, it's all my fault. I keep moving it. I want to discuss race relations, which in my opinion, the debate really did not adequately cover. I don't think it was treated as a really serious topic.
Next debate that we don't have.
But I'm going to start, let's see, who did I start with first before? I started with you, didn't I? Oh, well, we're going to keep doing it that way. Did you hear any of them come up with any ideas that, well, first of all, do you agree that race relations are a real serious problem today?
Yes.
Did you hear any suggestions from either one of them that you think would help race relations, and if so, what?
Well, kind of what stood out to me is like Hillary was complaining about the frisk. What's it called? Frisk.
Stop and frisk.
Stop and frisk, and like that's the most important thing in the world, and that we can't have that. And then contrasting that with Trump talking about the 4,000 people that had died in Chicago, and I can't remember how long.
Since Obama was
as if those two things are equal, which to me seems ridiculous. And so it's like, it's just back to the thing of being politically correct. You can't stop and frisk somebody, even if 4,000 people are being killed, and that just seems crazy.
So you're, to sum up, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, I'm asking you if this is a sum of your words. You're real concerned about Hillary's ability to make a judgment on what the racial problem is.
Yeah, and making it, it's just political correctness, and I'm sick of it.
And you don't think she's going to have any solution?
None.
Christian.
I didn't hear neither one of them. They didn't bring up. They didn't present any solutions, and when it comes to that subject, in my opinion, neither one of them did. At least for this debate.
Okay.
I think it's an issue for sure.
Who do you think is more likely to help racial relations?
I don't think that Hillary is going to do anything about it. And on the
She's
other,
going to kind of keep the status quo or make it worse?
I don't think she's going to do anything about it, to be honest. And Trump, I don't know. I used to think he was like racist. I don't think he cares much for minorities and stuff. But I do think that he wants to make America a better place. That's what I think. But when it comes to the racism and stuff like that, I don't think neither one of them is really focused on.
Okay, Don?
I think it's almost like what you were saying earlier, that people say one thing and then they do something else. And I think Donald Trump's words are pretty harsh because he's a combat guy. He likes to fight. He's a fighter. He'll take people on and he'll say anything. He'll throw the kitchen sink at him. And you see that all the time. But when you get right down to what he's actually willing to do, I don't see Hillary meeting with all the black pastors. I don't see Hillary reaching out and you know, trying to solve some problems in the. I mean, I thought it was very courageous on Trump's part to go to have some rallies when he had them in Chicago and different places where, you know, George Soros was bringing in all these people to create fights and all this kind of thing. And I think that if Trump has the opportunity, it's just like these more recent rallies with Don King. And he was talking about specific things that they were going to try to do in the inner cities if he were elected. And he was meeting with the pastors, and they were actually trying to come up with some plans.
It's kind of like the rains, the floods in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Right.
He went down there and he brought a few truckloads of supplies that they needed. He actually did something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas nobody else even wanted to go down there.
That's right.
Obama finally went down there after Trump shamed him into doing it.
Right, after he was playing a million.
Trump did say something good though, like we do need law, you know, when it comes to those issues, and we need order, you know. And I agree with that. Like there needs to be some type of order that has, you know, there is no respect when, you know, people don't respect the police, and sometimes I even think that the police don't respect certain people, and that's just I think it's evident, you know.
Jim.
Well, one thing I wanted to bring out is, you know, we had the preliminaries, and Trump was up against 16 or 17 other candidates. And what he did is next to unbelievable, because a number of these were veterans, people that
Veteran campaigners, you mean?
and politicians, and
Not military veterans.
And so he said things in such a way to antagonize them, gave them nicknames and so forth, which I'm sure they didn't enjoy. But his goal was to get to this point. And I doubt he would have gotten to this point if he didn't do some of these really ridiculous things, because it had everybody watching what he was doing. He was doing a lot of criticism because there was a basis for it. His conversations with regard to that Mexicans are just bad
criminals,
rapists, rapists and so forth. Some are. Do you understand what sanctuary?
Some white people are too.
Amen. Sanctuary cities are a major problem because these cities will take the bad guy in, hide them, and protect them. And it's now, if your kids were killed by these illegals, I think you would feel a little differently about how the way they're treated. Not the whole group, but the individuals that created the problem. It's because I had the same problem. I didn't care for the way he was talking about people and attacking them and so forth. But when you look at the result, he had it figured out. Because very frankly, you might have ended up with any one of the others that, and the thing that I find more as upsetting than that is the candidates that took the pledge that they would vote for the Republican that won. And I think 4 or 5 of them have refused it. As far as I'm concerned, their careers are done. But it's Trump right up front said he may not. He doesn't change his mind. But,
he signed the pledge and he said he'd go along with it.
But it's so sometimes there's other things that aren't explained well as to what's behind them.
Hans, what did you think about any of them come up with any ideas, in your opinion, to address the problem with racism?
Well, I don't think we have a racism problem at all. I think we have a police out of control problem. And as far as the Constitution, and the Constitution isn't that big a document. You can probably read it in an hour.
That's
the Bill of
enough.
Rights. And I don't believe in throwing away or doing things just for expediency. Something bad happens and we just throw the Constitution in the toilet, which basically the Constitution is already a skeleton in my view. I mean, they've trimmed a lot of fat off of it. And what's interesting to me is that the first thing that any public official, the first thing that any soldier does before he gets sworn in, and what it says is, I will defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Okay, so we need to rise above expediency just because some people get shot or whatever. All this racism is due to the police being out of control. They're killing the blacks. That's what started all this.
Isn't it also
But here's
possibly due to some of the blacks being out of control?
well, you can make generalities all you want, but that's what started this. Is too many people were getting killed by the
Let's
police.
go
A lot of it's
to
economic too.
let's go to Ferguson,
Well,
because Ferguson was the case that started this Michael Brown
a
situation.
lot of things have been started.
No, that was the start of this. Michael Brown, who was this huge black man who was probably high on some kind of drugs, walking down the center of the street, trying to reach in the car and get the officer's gun when he ended up getting shot. And believe me, the Obama administration did everything they could do to try and figure out how to prosecute this guy, and they came up with zero evidence. But the problem is that the black political community made this an issue. They had riots, they had demonstrations, all for somebody who was basically a criminal acting defiantly. And that doesn't mean all the police shootings are unfounded.
YouTube is full of videos showing absolute horrendous police brutality. Okay?
I'm sure that it is.
Full of it.
And a lot of it was the police haven't learned that everybody's got a movie camera today in their phone.
Well, that shouldn't matter.
And you can't do that anymore. They used to be able to get away with it. But what I'm saying is that one of my problems is the black community picks very poor examples to make an issue of. But anyway, let me move
wait.
on.
Let me just give the bottom line on this whole presidential deal. Here's my bottom line, and I love the bottom line. The bottom line is this: Hillary's a politician. Politicians have had their chance to fix whatever it is that, and plenty of time. Trump is a businessman. I say let's give a businessman a chance to, let's give somebody that's money oriented to chance.
Steve, I'm going to go back here to the racism question. Did either one of these ideas, do you think we have a racism problem? And did any of these either of these two candidates say anything that you thought would help it or hinder it?
Well, I think probably the majority of the people in the country are not racist. Hillary, just even in the debate, suggests that there's racism is just a big part of the society. So I think what she says makes the problem worse. It makes the people who feel like they're the target of racism feel worse about it, bigger divide, and I think that's offensive. I think it's very bad. It adds to the racism problem. And I think, I agree with Christopher. I'd say, Trump talked about law and order. It needs to be done in the proper way, But if everybody respects each other, there's law and order, not riots, it has to be better for race relations.
Michael, same question.
The question is about racism in
do you think we have? Yeah, do you think we have racism?
I think we have racism, but I don't think it's the problem that Hillary presented it to be. I think our racism starts in communities that are.
My question is, did any of the candidates present any ideas that you think might be a solution to it?
Well, I don't think there is a solution to it. I think this is as Dr. Hodgkin said, a matter of respect for one another, learning how to respect your fellow man. And I think that is a lesson that parents no longer teach their children.
Yes.
And I think it's a lesson that a lot of people these days don't give a damn about. And until we have respect for one another, there's no way we can ever have a relationship.
Okay. Amy, do you think there's racism, and did you hear anything from any of the candidates that you thought might help it?
I think that one question is, why do we immediately assume with stop and frisk that the person's not white? Okay, that's a problem. And I didn't really hear a solution, but I think we don't have a racism problem as much as we have an entitlement problem. We really feel entitled, and we don't see each other as people anymore. We see each other in differences, not as individuals. So I think that's where the problem is. It's not the color of your skin, it's like Dr. Hodgkin said and like Dr. Solomon said, it's respect for another person. Be able to look them in the eye and actually see them as a person, as a being, and not as something separate or different than you are. Or an obstacle to get past.
Mary, do you think that there's agree that racism is a big problem, and did you hear any solutions?
I didn't hear any solutions, but I do think we have a racism problem. We have black leaders who instigate things that, instead of Black Dr. King, who tried to calm things down and talk reasonably, we don't have that anymore, I don't think. I just don't see it.
Kathy?
I think the vast majority of people in America are not racist, but I think there is some racism in America. I thought Trump got closer to a solution because I think in order to get a solution, you have to honestly talk about the problem, and you have to talk about the facts. And what I like about him is he tends to say it like it is, and it seems like he's genuinely saying what he believes. And he was trying to talk about the fact that violence is a problem, and thousands of people have been killed in Chicago. And well, why is this happening? You have to acknowledge the facts if you're going to try to figure out how to prevent that or what to do about it. And Hillary, rather than, yeah, that many people were murdered and why is this happening, immediately tried to convince the audience that Trump is attacking black communities and black churches and black families, and she's not going to get anywhere near a solution because she's just trying to get people upset rather than get down to business and acknowledge what's happening.
Okay, Barry.
I agree with what my wife said.
Finally learned.
I think the racism problem in this country is minimal. I think what we're seeing now is political ginning up of an issue that rarely exists. I mean, one of the things I love about San Francisco is walking the streets at night and there's people from all over the world working, intertwining their lives. And I really feel great about the United States when I walk through a city like San Francisco, because there's people from all over who are getting along and just applying their everyday life with family and work and friends of all colors. And I think that's what makes this country great. And, yes, there are pockets of problems, but I think some of our political leaders, especially Hillary Clinton right now and Barack Obama, are using that as a weapon to gain votes right now. I think it's minimal.
George?
Yeah, I would agree. I think our racism is minimal. I believe there's certain type of politicians that are using it right now for polls and use it as bait for us.
Did you hear any solutions?
I don't think, no, I didn't hear of any solutions of what they thought was going to fix it, and I don't think the federal government has the power to fix it. I think it's got to be done on a lower scale through cities,
moral
education, and again, consciousness and individuals.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm also very pro law enforcement, so I have a lot of close friends that are law enforcement that have to deal with these issues. And I won't repeat basically what they say, but their job is not easy, and it's become more dangerous for them. And the exposure for them to get hurt, shot, or basically hurt is grown. And as time goes by, they're restrained more of what they can do, what they can't do, what they can't say. typically, as we all know, you know, police officers ain't called because, hey, I got the best citizen over here opening my car. They're called for the worst citizens that are doing the worst things that in society that they shouldn't be doing. So, you know, I give them kudos, and it's a tough job. And I think that we have law enforcement officers. I say for the most part, I think they're all great. All the ones I know are great. You know, bad apples and everything, but I don't know.
Well, did you ask her if she remembers the question?
No, she said.
Okay, the question is, do you think there's racism, and did you hear any solutions in the debate?
Dice, la primera pregunta es, ¿usted cree que existe el racismo aquí en Estados Unidos? Y la segunda pregunta es si escuchó alguna respuesta a ese problema.
Sí existe racismo.
You think there's racism?
Yes.
Did you hear any solutions?
Yes. No.
Okay, that's quick. Okay, well, I think we filibustered about as much on this debate as we can right now. I want to thank all my friends for coming in here. I think that this was a really enlightening discussion. I learned a lot of things I didn't know, and I hope you did too. The one thing I wanted to do, you can go to any other of the stations and you'll see professional talking heads basically trying to brainwash you. And the one thing we tried to do here, when I was on the radio, I called my show Think Radio. And the one thing I was trying to do with this show was to give you ideas so you, my viewers, can all make your own decisions. And I hope you think we succeeded in that. And I want to thank you on behalf of all my friends for watching.
Ask for feedback.
And good night.